Welcome to Insights in Sound, where we talk to the people behind the scenes, behind the technology, and behind the music. People you may not know, but you should. And please check out getitinwriting.net/shows for a full list of our podcast YouTube series.
All right. It's the only place you can do this. We love it. Okay, the post-major label era has changed everything about making music. Artists can do it on their own, as we all know, from writing and recording to releasing and promoting their work. In this panel, moderated by writer, musician, and multimedia producer Daniel Liston Keller, several top-name music producers will weigh in on how the role of the producer has changed for them. So please welcome Daniel Keller.
This thing on? Do I have to throw a switch? Like a button or something? You know, audio people, we never know this shit.
On is up.
You can't even plug a cable in.
Louder is up.
Cable. Give me a second. And now, ooh yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, we'll muddle through this. Let me introduce my esteemed panelists here. I'm not going to rattle off credits because these guys are all like Googleable. You like that word? Googleable. Yes, exactly right. So, beginning from the far end, we have Mr. Ross Hogarth. Mr. Mark Needham. Mr. Adam Moseley. Mr. Larry Klein. And Mr. Erik Zobler. So each of you gentlemen has worked in a wide range of genres over a particular length of time, and therefore you have seen both the eras of the past and the eras of now, and I really kind of want to talk about where we've come from in order to justify where we are now. So, in theory, as a producer, our role is to nurture the artist and help them to achieve their vision. Now, for many, many years, there has been a major label structure involved in that, with mostly marketing, promotion, but also a lot of other intervention as well. And a lot of that has changed. We'll get into the specifics of what's changed, but I would like to know from you guys, especially, what has opened up for you in the demise of the major label being in the mix? That's kind of the subject here. And you know, we'll go into broad strokes here, but what has changed for you in terms of when you're finding an artist now versus when you had to go through a lot of other layers, shall we say? I'm just going to throw this out here and put a nickel in each of you and let you go here. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure that we all have opinions on it. Anybody want to just review for me what has changed?
Somebody dive
in. Yeah, okay. Good.
Much, I know, but you know, yeah.
Testing, that hasn't changed.
Yes.
I think there's been a whole shift, and I think it's actually been quite a healthy shift. The power seems to be back in the hands of the artists. I think some of the confines that we would work in for a label with so many people involved, I think it's come back to a one-to-one relationship now, or with the bands or with an artist. And I think, for myself, I find it really encouraging. I think the fact that most artists have the ability to make music, and many recognize they still need the expertise to help them achieve what's in their head. So that hasn't changed, but I think there's been much more creative freedom.
you want to just go back a little bit and do a little history, there was the way it used to be, the producers were record company people, and they were assigned to bands. And it's sometime around in the 70s when studios, which were also owned by record companies, independence started to happen. Studios started to become independent. Everybody started to become producers, engineers. So that's the history. That's where we come from, and we have gone way far away from that now. Where if you're a producer, you don't necessarily get your jobs from the record label. You might, but for me, it's all one-to-one. It's word of mouth. It's I heard this. You know, what are you doing? Can you work with me? Can you help me produce this, whatever I'm doing?
And even before that, it's almost like it's gone back to before that now, like in the era of like in the 50s,
Yeah.
when you know,
We were really A&R people in
you
that
had
sense.
you had all these little small companies like Commodore, you know, doing Billie Holiday, you know, like and that you know these artists would get found by these small companies. You know, Otis Redding was a janitor at Stax, and someone, you know, I think Steve Cropper heard him
Right.
singing one day and said, hey, you know, you should write
On
songs.
in here.
Bill Withers was installing toilet seats on airlines.
Yeah, you know, so it's almost like it's gone cyclically back to this sort of wide open construct, and I think that in some ways for me it's gotten better in that I've always done all kinds of records. I get curious. I mean, curiosity drives me, you know, and I get curious about something. And, you know, I've had the experience. You know, I get curious about fado music and the history of fado, and then somehow my phone rings and it's Ana Mora's manager, you know, with some kind of synchronicity, you know, like just calling me or DMing me on, you know, on whatever social media platform, and so it's more unpredictable and serves my thirst for eclectic things, you know, like I just, you know, part of what I love most about my job is learning about, you know, and going down, doing a deep dive into whatever kind of artist, wherever they sit aesthetically, and usually that's for me in the cracks between two or three genres. That's kind of where I live. But my only reservation that I would voice, and it's not a complaint. I mean, it's just sort of one aspect of it has changed and is to me kind of a difficult part of the situation for artists is that artists have to do everything now. I mean, they have to. It's a DIY world, right? Like so you can have a incredibly talented musician, songwriter, great performer, but they have to become a filmmaker. They have to learn how to you know, use, they have to become their own publicist. They have to learn to become experts in social media and manipulating and using that to get their music out. There's no publicist initial, you know, unless, before they get picked up, if they get picked up by a major, they're the whole engine, and there is, I think, in art, not only music, there's a big, a wonderful thing about collaboration, you know, in the same way that we work with artists, and there's this collaborative process, and we bounce ideas back and forth, and you know, you end up with this thing that has been made by, you know, two people putting their minds together. You know, now the artist has to, you know, can't rely on an incredibly creative marketing person or PR person, or they just have to do everything, you know, like they have to be ready to do everything. And I wonder sometimes if that affects the ability for people to write great songs and make something that is going to be great in a timeless way.
Because their attentions are so scattered in all these other aspects, is what you're saying?
They have to be.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and you know, the ability to just concentrate on trying. It's hard enough to make a great record that's going to hold up in 10 years.
Yeah, I have to agree with
you know,
this last comment that Larry made. I mean, behind the walls of the studio, my job is the same. You know, when we close the door of the studio, my gig is, you know, I got to stay focused on the song, the art, the creation of art, the relationship, trust, all those things. But like to talk about what Larry was just talking about briefly, and I come up against this often, where the artist is, like, if you're so focused on your social media, and if you're so focused on all the other things, and you're not focused on your music, the music suffers, but the music is the driver for it all. It's like, you know, I'm personally not a TikTok guy, so I know that people put out a zillion TikTok videos, and there are TikTok artists and all that, and just call me old and, like, irrelevant in that respect. What's that? Well, I don't know. Someone would call me irrelevant. I'm good at making coffee. I've gotten really better at making coffee because we got to keep the artists awake, and because they're up doing so much.
Does make really good coffee.
And but you know, like in relation to what Larry was just tipping off into, because you know the way the conversation started, it was about, kind of went off right into the business of it, and I think that's you know, it is. We have to now, as like for me as a producer and an engineer and a mixer, because I don't produce everything I engineer, and I don't mix everything I engineer, and I don't engineer everything I mix. But if I produce, engineer, and mix. That I do, and that's my gig. But I'm not personally a songwriter, like just because I wrote one song. I don't consider myself a songwriter. But you know, the thing that I have to keep the artist focused on is the music, because they can get so distracted with everything else that, you know, I'm like, well, and I'm dealing with it right now with an amazing singer, and she's so all over the place and not ready to go in the studio because I don't have the songs I want to go in and make that record. Now, I still like making records. A lot of times in a lot of genres, it's not even records. We don't even make records anymore. I call it
Make
a record.
albums, yeah.
We you know, it's like a one-song thing. So just to finish the thought before Mark, gets to say something here, is the fact that A&R doesn't exist anymore. Artist and repertoire, that's what A&R was. There were guys that their job was to go out and find music and bring it to whoever they thought was the appropriate person to make that record. And that's after the staff guys, because that was, the earliest were staff guys. So there are no A&R guys. So as far as the artist is concerned, the thing I've also seen for any artist out there that writes your own stuff, you guys become producers because you end up producing your own material.
And engineers.
And engineers. And then, you guys call me up to make you coffee because that's what I've gotten good at. So,
That's one on my credit list, barista. I put that on there too.
Oh, and he makes really good coffee too, by the way.
I've been developing artists as well as being a producer, mixer for a lot of years. A big part of what I do is find artists and develop them and partner with majors or independent labels. And for me, it's made things a little easier for me that I don't have to please an A&R scout at a label. I can find an artist that we have a synergy together and see the same vision for a project, and we can spend the time to make those 3 or 4 songs and really find that focus without having to deal with trying to please a label. I mean, at some point I'm gonna need distribution, and we can do independent distribution, or I know, at least I've taken something that the vision that the artist and I had together, and I can take that to a label. As far as, I understand what everybody was saying, the trouble of keeping an artist focused on the music and not being their own publicist, but an artist has to have input into their, into their publicity, and if you can get, advice I give artists is, let's find your 30 most avid fans we'll go on social media, find those 15, right? 15, 30, whatever it is, find the 3 that are most active on social media, and make all 15 or 30 of them you're my platinum circle in my fan club for the rest of for eternity. Exactly. You get into every show. I'll make a shirt or a special coat for you once a year, and then the top 3, if you give those top 3. If you spend 1 day a month, they'll try to create a new video or something every day because it's usually something stupid. It's like you're trying to think about your song, but now you got to think about a video, and you're eating a piece of toast, so you take a video of the piece of toast. It's a lot of them get sort of stupid. If you really plan 1 month, 1 day out of every month, you're going to go out and just shoot content and just focus on content that day, and then you don't have to do anything for the rest of the month. You got enough content in the bank that you can post a clever something, unless something really special happens in the studio and you want to post that. But you just have a lot of content, and you share some of that content with the top 3 of those super rabid fans, and they get to push content that nobody else has, right? This isn't content that you're posting. They have their own exclusive content. And I've also partnered up with some music business, music promotion classes at different colleges. And all right, I have, I'll bring in and I'll work with the school and the professor to have the 20 students in the class. Here's your for real life assignment for the next 3 weeks. You get to actually work on a band that is either maybe on a label or they're independent. We're going to try to get onto a major label, but you're going to have to interact with me, the artist, and my manager, and get real world feedback on what you did. Like, that was a really crappy job. Like, you sent out 3 emails and they didn't have anything to do.
What was the school where you did this? Where did you do this? Was that a school or university or a music school or what?
I'm working with a couple actually universities in Nashville right now. We're getting ready to roll one out on a band I'm signing. So if they can have their fans working and if you can get, connect with a music school and give them some real wide, with some real
It's real world
work
training.
experience.
That's awesome.
Get real feedback from somebody like me, and I'm not going to be kind if they did a stupid job. That's the world we live in. But there's just ways that you can organize your time better, so the artist isn't always thinking about that every day, because they need to post something. They got to post, 5 days a week or something. But if you just set aside that one day, film all your content on that day, that's content day, and then you don't worry about it again for the rest of the month.
What I've been telling anybody, we go in the studio or something, just have somebody rolling some video somewhere, just somewhere, because you never know if you use it or not. But if you don't, you obviously
you can put your iPhone up and just have
right,
just
put a
have
GoPro
camera.
up or two, and just have it
Sometimes I've spent a lot of time with bands that had every studio, every room in the studio had cameras in it, and it ended up being documentaries. And sometimes for me, sometimes it's a little restraining, because I don't forget that the camera's there. But if they,
Good job we didn't have that in the
Changes
70s.
the dynamic, yeah.
Good job that wasn't there in the 70s and 80s. But I just wanted to pull back to a point as well, talking about A&R and how that's changed as well, and the major labels and all that stuff. Obviously, the major labels originally would determine, all the factors in the team, and you were making the record with the artist to deliver to the label to their specification. From at least 20 years ago, that the shifts all started, and it became producers who were doing the artist development. It's not a new thing.
Of course.
As the A&R departments got smaller, bands were being signed with less long-term view. Maybe they had a good song or two or an artist, and it came down to the producer that was hired to try and pull it all together, package the thing. And often I found I was like backtracking in the artist or the band's development because it hadn't been done. They'd been signed because of a couple of songs, and now you had to pull the whole picture together and actually take over all of those elements. I think also, like talking about social media and so on, there's always been filters in the business. It used to be the major labels deciding who got signed, whose music got pushed out. Now the filters are your peers. Your music has to be good enough. If it's not good enough, other people aren't going to listen. They're not going to like it. But also there's reality, and again, you mentioned like the real world, that artists now have to be more aware of the real world. They don't have the cushion of the big budgets and the big advances, so they have to think more about themselves as a brand, as a business, make sure they separate the time to make their music and make their art, which is what you're saying, but separate the other time to take care of the other things. But it's always been that kind of thing where talent will shine through. These days, talent gets recognized by other music makers and by their listeners. And I think that's a really healthy thing.
I think that, as usual, I'm going to point out some of the negative points of things. But I mean, not that I mean, there are a lot of things, what everybody's said here, about the positive aspects of how things have changed, and I echo their sentiments, but then and I love what you were saying about the phenomenon of schools. I do a couple of stretches at Berkeley, and I always, never fails that I run into in working with artists there. I run into incredible talent, like both as far as the players and the artists that they find for me to work with and whatnot. But I think that that there's there's an aspect of sort of the mastering of the medium of social of social media as a medium that has kind of eliminated some great things from the world and from, I mean, one thing, for example, is humility, you know. There is no humility anymore. You know,
Yeah, because you have to be your own
because you have
PR
to
machine.
to your own horn. You got
I think there's a plug-in, isn't there?
it's just vanished, from the music world, for everybody. Everybody's online saying, look at me, look at how great the stuff is that I'm making, and listen to it and you'll find greatness, and the mastery of working something like TikTok has become as essential or more essential than writing a group of great songs. I mean, I've seen that in different artists where they just have become sort of masters of social media, and I have to say that as much as you can find incredibly talented people who do that, and that's a stroke of luck when you find that, because of course, if you happen to be wanting to try and get them positioned at a major, in the few majors left, their numbers have to be incredibly high. That's the first, because that's the function of the A&R man now, is looking at what the social media numbers are, first of all, before the music even, and I just wonder, I mean, I do my best in the work that I do with artists, but I wonder about making great things, and how this kind of structure has affected that, how many great records are going to be made that are going to be listened to for 20 years,
I have a lot of artists that reach out to me that want, work with me on development stuff and that have incredible numbers on TikTok, and that means nothing to me. If you don't have a great, I mean, I can find people who can help them get their TikTok numbers up, but if they don't have a great song and a great presence and know who they are, or at least have some kind of a vision for who they are, then hopefully I can help refine. But
yeah.
I don't look for somebody who's got the big social media numbers. I've had so many who've come to me that were way better at manipulating social media than writing songs.
Right.
Right.
Well, doesn't that bring into a kind of a bigger question of how, I mean, because especially, now, for the most part, you guys work with indie artists who probably care a little bit less about genres, but if you look at the way we consume music over the past 10, 20 years especially, it's gotten even more and more narrowcast in terms of genres. You have to fit into some particular niche, and doesn't that also impact the way you're working with these artists? If are they more conscious of that? Are they trying to fit into a certain thing, or?
I tend to think differently on that. I think because radio isn't the main media and radio was so niche, you had to hit absolutely 100%.
It's radio.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But you had those restrictions, and you had the restrictions from labels with big budgets determining this record has to go down these pipelines, and that's the direction. Here's the machine to go behind it. What I find really energizing with artists is that they're not looking necessarily at making an album. The world has shifted. It always shifts. We've come through such major changes in the business and technology and the way that we do our work. The principles are still the same. But for artists, with the focus not being about the next album, I really see where they really work on their next song. They really, really work because they know there's a lot of competition out there. It's got to be better than the majority of the other stuff. And I actually see, again, a positive energy in it where they want that next song to be great, to be the best it can be, to have moved on from their previous song because they want to get more numbers, more listeners. But again, the jury is other people who listen to music. And you can listen to anything. It's at your fingertips. So
That's for better or worse in a way,
yeah,
right?
Revenue worse, but music-wise, a lot healthier because no one's telling you what you can have access to. You can find whatever you want to listen to, and the good stuff is being listened by other people.
I'm gonna be really direct, I guess, or honest. I like helping people make music. That's what I like. I like sitting in the studio hearing something that I've been part of come out of the speakers. It's why I do what I do. It's so wearying, the social media. I admire Mark and anyone else and any artist that I try to be positive and a good positive reinforcement, man. But I don't want to deal with it. Larry used a word that I'm very into, humility or humble. I don't get to tell you how humble I am today. I don't get to take my own scorecard. My T-shirt doesn't say I'm so fucking humble, but at the same time...
But you are.
At the same time, humility is freedom from pride or arrogance. It's not thinking less of myself, it's thinking of myself less. And so for me to be a good producer, I have to be able to be a really good listener and also say things that are sometimes uncomfortable, like, you're not spending enough time on your music. You're spending so much time on your social media that I don't even want to follow you anymore because I don't want to see what there's too much. I'm inundated with you. I'm seeing you in the studio every day, and I do understand, like, cameras in every room and all that stuff. Man, it gets so old to me. Like, when was the privacy of our recording process? Yeah. Like, the studio used to be a really private place. It was a safe and private place.
Well, everybody got cameras on their phones.
And now everyone's got a camera, and now I got to wonder whether I got a good haircut going. And it's like, I don't have good hair. Fuck it.
Got my bald spot.
And it's like, so... So, I mean, I just have to say it's really wearying to sit and have this conversation just focus on what I find to be, as much as it's important to you guys who are artists, I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that to me, the best I'm going to do is say, that was a really good song, or you played a fucking kick-ass guitar, or you sang a great vocal. And I hope you have someone helping you, because if you're trying to do it all alone and do it on your own, you're probably not going to do so well.
That's why I try to encourage people to be able to use your fans to do that, and just spend your one day a month. Use your fans to do that, so you're not,
Exactly.
Because
a fan club. Yeah.
If you're using all your time making social media, I agree with you. It's like, right? It's more important to make a great tune. So if you can get some people to help you with that, it's my thought. I never do social media myself, but I know how to tell people to connect with other people who can help them. That's kind of. I mean, I agree with you. I would never have cameras in my studio. I don't. That would just screw my day up royally. I don't want to think about that.
So a lot of what I'm hearing though here is that there's now more freedom to go back to the real role of the producer as a pre-production role in really helping the artist before we get into the studio, right? I was going to say before we roll tape, which just dates me right there. But essentially, isn't that ideally the role that we want to have?
Yeah, I mean, it's the role that we've always had, basically, but now it's...
Now there are fewer middlemen, we
Right.
hope, is what
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking.
But as music producers, you were always there to nurture and coax the artist and try and get a record better than they thought they could make, get a performance better than they thought, how to understand, create that relationship of trust, because trust has to be earned. You can't just walk in and with a different T-shirt which says, "Trust me." You know, that's not going to work.
Oh, Ross has got a good slogan for that. He must.
That's my one. It's on the back. But yeah, I think in many ways our role hasn't changed at all. I think some things have become more valuable in the experience that we bring, knowing how to craft a song, knowing how to do the pre-production stage, knowing how to have the vision and define the parameters, and then bring what we do best, which is capturing the performance creatively through getting the sound, through doing it in the mix or different combinations. But I think a lot of our role hasn't changed. The world around us has, but it always has been changing. And sometimes I think we don't even realize how obviously we've adapted because we're still here. And that's something with change. It's always going to happen. You know, you mentioned tape. You know, that was a big transition. But everyone just grows with it, you know.
I think that the fact that one thing that has become more difficult for artists is having the resources financially to have live musicians, for example, you know, to have a room full of musicians that you make a record with. And for me, you know, I sort of, my you know, where my taste and where I find kind of the poetry and things usually is in some sort of unidentified nexus between genres, like the cracks between the cracks of things, you know, and a lot of what I love about the job that we have is working with a room full of musicians and getting the best out of them and having the privilege of drawing on
those magic moments.
Yeah,
The ensemble.
Happy accidents.
Drawing on the synergy between them and you know, it's sort of also the sort of the ninja part of the job too, you know, like of being able to come into a studio and make people feel invested enough that you're going to draw something incredible out of them, you know, the musicians, and the reality of things for a lot of artists now is that they have to, you know, they have to do a whole lot in the box because it's you know, it's a different world as far as having the money to hire, musicians.
How many musicians that we work with really haven't had that much experience of playing in an ensemble situation?
Yeah.
This is one of the things that's
Well, I
changed.
think the
This-
pandemic
huge.
was interesting because it forced everyone into their boxes, all of us. You know, we all went into our boxes. Fortunately, I have a studio, and there I was working on a couple of records, and then I had to do overdubs on a couple things, long distance. So everyone is in their boxes, and now that it's opening up again, and the thing I've seen, and I think it's actually really cool, because I am in touch with a lot of younger artists. I mean, I work with some legacy artists, but I also, to me, it's the juice is in the young artists. That's where it's at for me. And, because I'm old, okay? But anyway, so for me, the thing I love is that they're having had that experience of being locked away and in the box. The things that I took it for granted that every day I was in the studio was with a band or a bunch of people, and I've had the pleasure of recording Larry I mean, when musicians play together, something happens that can't happen any other way. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, their eyes roll up in their head, and
we call that
that
magic.
they lose themselves,
Yeah.
right?
That's the magic. That's the
when
shit
you call
that-
the paramedics, yes.
That's the shit that you can't get by going over it and over and over and over and over and carving it down. And so what I think has happened through the pandemic and coming out the other side is all those young musicians that were got into the box are like, oh shit, I like playing with other musicians. So there's a lot more of that happening now, and it's inspiring because
Coming back, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually, instead of that staying, it was sort of like the drum machine. Drum machine came in, and everybody thought the drum machine was freaking awesome, and drummers was like, I don't know when I'm gonna have a career, Jeff Porcaro, and the drum machine is been integrated, So I think there's a shift, and I think that's the interesting thing in seeing what happens. That sometimes time has its own way of like leveling things out.
I think we just consider for a minute, if you have a demo of a song, however produced it is, you're going to go and you're going to produce it. It's been delivered to you by the artist. This is my song, in whatever form it is. You write out a chart, and you figure out all the people you want to play on it, just to say rhythm sections, let's say 5 people, maybe 4 people, and you send the demo and the chart to all of them, and they sit in their rooms and they all play their own part, and then comes back to you and you put it together. How different will that be? You take the same, put all those people in one room together. They're going to be very, very different. And it goes to your point about making music records that will live on for 20 years. How many of the records that are on the radio today, when you're walking around the mall and you listening to whatever pop radio is today, you're not going to hear any of these songs in maybe 1 or 2, and that's what's missing, in my opinion. So,
and that's always been when I started doing the job, and kind of transitioned into producing records in addition to playing on them, and but my like the joy of the thing always was for shooting, for make
Magic, right?
It's
Yeah.
like they asked Leon. I saw a great Leon Russell quote where somebody said, do you try to write hits? And he said, no, hell no. I want to write a classic.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I want those moments when I'm feeling goosebumps and stuff.
Yeah, I want to make something that's going to make people feel something for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I generally love to work with live musicians more than just focusing
Absolutely.
in the studio. So I mean, I've been doing this, I started in 1970, and you didn't have drum machines. So, but it's just, to me, it's just another tool. The program stuff is just another tool that you can use. And sometimes Wicked Game, that song I did with Chris, that was 1980 something. That was all programmed. I programmed the drums, the bass on a synclavier. I did the whole and it worked. And we had one live acoustic guitar and an electric guitar and Chris's vocal. But the rest of it, I just programmed it. That worked great for that tune. We didn't do any other songs that way. But again, you just got to be careful what tools you're pulling out of the box. I think, because,
Right.
but all the tools can help make a great song. That's just to me,
There's no rules in that sense, but it's just.
That's the one thing I love. Like why I started I got into the business. I mean, there aren't any rules. I don't have to. Nobody can tell me what's right or what's wrong.
That's why we do what we do, because we
Yeah.
follow rules. So I have been given a 10-minute notice about 4 or 5 minutes ago. I'm not really watching, But I would like to kind of open it up to some Q&A for the last few minutes, if that's, of course, none of us can see any of you, and I don't know if we got a microphone or anything like that.
Do you exist if we don't see you?
Okay, I go to the podium and, okay, cool. That works. All right, now you all get to queue up and just run to the microphone. Whoever gets there first.
Hi, I'll start. I want to ask you guys, what's the advice that you would give to producers that are just starting out now? Like, what's the core, the main thing that you know?
I mean, the quick answer is don't. But the second,
Do it if you have to.
but the second answer is learn your art. It's what, we're all learning. We've been doing this for some considerable time. I wouldn't want to add up the years. But thank God I feel I'm learning every day. I can't imagine the day that I would wake up and go, or halfway through a mix, and I go, oh my God, I think I just know everything. That's it. The horror and the fear would be overwhelming. Learn your trade. It's what we all did by getting into studios at the time. Those opportunities aren't really there. But we sat at the back of the room, brought tea and coffee and stuff, and watched great people in front of us, or played with great people, and learned our trade from other people that supposedly knew what they were doing. And that's how we learned. There's no substitute for putting in the graft, putting in the work, and learn how to make music and make better music. Most importantly, make music, get it out, learn, finish it, get the next music out, get it better, and just keep moving is what I've certainly done in my career.
Yeah, study great records.
Yeah.
And what makes them, what makes them something that makes you feel something and so incredibly intensely, because chances are if it makes you feel that it's going to make a lot of other people feel that, that's for me always why I even started playing music was that, that it was a way to feel something intensely and I identify those things and there's so many some incredible tools for learning the stuff that that we had to figure out how to learn. You have mixed with the masters, and you've got these mediums.
You have the YouTubes.
Know whose shoulders you stand on, and then
Exactly.
Oscar Wilde said it best: "Be yourself. Everybody else is already taken."
Let's take another question.
That's good.
Thanks for all the insight all day, guys. It's been great. Quick question about deflated budgets and where you guys are kind of at with signing artists into kind of the production deal that might have money on the back end versus taking, production jobs that are paid up front or, in a more traditional way. Just like ratio-wise, I guess, maybe where you guys are at with that?
I mean, I do maybe 1 to 3 of those kind of deals a year. It's I can afford to do them, and it's fun. I like finding something that I think is cool. I don't really care if anybody else likes it. If I love the artist loves what they're doing and I love it, I'll take the chance. But I can't do. I think the most I've done in 1 year is probably 4. But I've had a few that paid off and made me as much money in my lifetime as I made for all the other jobs, So sometimes you can, it's like going to Vegas and betting it all on Red 13,
Let's take another question.
Yeah, this is a long one.
Yeah, I was wondering what advice you guys would have for musicians looking to do sessions or looking to be session musicians.
I would just say find people to play with. No one's going to notice you if you're sitting on the bench. You've got to get out there. You've got to be seen. Also, that creates a whole different level of professionalism that you're going to have to step up to. There's nothing like being tested, you know, and it will push you. If you want it, then push yourself to get better. But find people, you know, to start out with. Find gigs. Do loads of gigs with different bands, different artists. One of them, two of them could blow up. And at the same time, you'll be seen as the go-to person for whatever you're doing. Just get out there. Don't sit on the bench waiting for someone to call you on.
We have been notified that that is all the time we have.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You go for another hour.
Let's do that collectively. Aw.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much for coming.
Your voice sounds amazing.
Everything's fine. Budgets are fine. Of course they are. Fine. Everything is good. Nothing is fucked here. There's still great music, great producers, great engineers. Hire these guys. They are for hire.
Hey, I'm Daniel Keller. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join us each week for Insights in Sound.